Welcome to Narrator's Cut. Today, we are going to show you a drama, apocalyptic, and post apocalyptic fiction movie called Cargo. In the aftermath of a horrific pandemic in rural Australia, a contaminated father urgently looks for a new home for his baby daughter, as well as a way to shield her from his own evolving nature. Watch out for spoilers and keep an eye on. Andy, Kay, and Rosie live in a post apocalyptic boathouse by the river. Food and resources scavenging is difficult. Kay advises them to restock their supplies at a nearby rural town, but Andy recommends they follow the river. So Andy ventures off on his own to refill their supplies. Kay takes after the boathouse. He returns to tend after their daughter. She spots the yacht and walks over to get more provisions. When Andy wakes up, he finds Kay bleeding from her leg in the bathroom. They now have 48 hours to infect her fully. He decides to take a chance and go on land to find a hospital they can help Kay to stop bleeding. They grab their things and walk. Andy and his family meet Thummy's ill father on the road while driving a stolen car. Astonished by his terrible appearance, he swerves right and hits a large tree. He wakes up to see his wife stabbed by a branch. She had written, "Rescue her," on the car before she got sick. Kay, now sick, screams at her husband to save their only daughter. She bites his arms, causing the disease to spread. He also gets Rosie out of the car. He breaks his wife's neck and throws her over the vehicle, howling. He wears a countdown watch. Only 48 hours remain before he dies. Then Etta, anxious for her daughter's survival, meets him, the only living thing in the region. She heals Andy's injured arm and gives them food and a place to sleep. Etta reveals that she used to teach and that all of her old students had returned home. Thummy hides from her mother and her tribe, who have returned to the old ways. The next day, they find a sick military installation. Andy discovers a loudmouth shooter named Vic, trapped beneath several gas tanks. He starts Vic's truck and helps him escape by removing the gas tanks. Vic puts them into his car and drives them to his safe house. Andy and Rosie meet Lorraine, who Andy assumes is Vic's wife. Vic makes Andy go hunting with him. While he is reluctant to deny the gunman who saved their lives, he agrees and gives Lorraine his daughter. Afterward, Vic brings Andy to an open field where the infected attack a metal cage. Vic tells him to keep shooting the swarm until no one is left. Andy is shocked as they approach the swarm of the dead when they discover a child among them. Thunmi is in the cage. Andy takes her child in later for that night, feeling crushed by despair. He exits the room, kneeling in a dark corner of the secure home, considering suicide. Maybe he should kill himself right now. After all, this pair has Rosie's back. Lorraine surprises Andy by appearing from the shadow with his daughter just as he is ready to commit. Lorraine urges them to go since Rosie will be happy with them. Vic, she claims, has imprisoned her and made her his wife against her will, after murdering her husband. On the phone, Andy accused Vic of stealing his wife. He strikes Andy in the head, knocking him out. Andy wakes up in the cage with Thunmi. Andy starts beating the cage's wall, desperate to escape. The shrill noise attracts the contaminated mirror. Andy suddenly discovers a big rope on the cage door. A bit of flesh attached to it draws the horde as more sick tugged on the rope. The horde bit. The cage door begins to open. Andy runs through the cage entrance, enticing Thunmi to follow. The cage door smashes shut, severing the binding. Andy runs terrified throughout the night, with Thunmi by his side. Andy wakes up as sleeping Lorraine and joins her with Rosie. As they're about to escape, the house floodlights switch on, exposing a furious Vic. The group flees as the mad gunman reloads his firearm. Andy is shot in the chest as he tries to run, but Lorraine rushes in front of him, collecting the bullet. Andy's symptoms had been worse all morning. Fear builds as he realizes how close he is to leave. Andy and Thummy hike because they don't want to waste time. Andy outlines his plan to place Rosie with a riverside family. In the trees, they locate Andy's and their old boathouse. They leave the boat after a few minutes and head to the trailer. In the meantime, Andy and his daughter look for the rest of the family. He finds them excavating a large hole on the property. Andy realizes his father is sick when he observes his countdown watch on his wrist. The father approaches Andy and begs him to take his 2 children. He couldn't, even if he wanted to. Andy's father takes out a handgun and tells him he only has 6 bullets left. As he walks away, four thunderous gunshots resound across the treetops. Andy feels the weight of their deaths on his shoulder as their bodies tumble on the earth. He takes the father's firearms and briefly contemplates killing his daughter. He is anxious to save Rosie and sees no other alternative. Tommy approaches him and explains her plan. If they can find them in time, Rosie will be safe. They go on their way. Following the huge clouds of black smoke, they pass through a railway tunnel and see several in hibernation. They enter a destroyed Vic. Andy hides amid the sleeping throng as Thummy and Rosie hide in the car. Vic searches for him while loading the weapon. Vic lunges towards Andy, taking down the afflicted one by one. Andy struggles to put down his gun. Vic slams him, knocking him unconscious for a few seconds. Vic rushes back to his car and slams Thummy into it. He then holds Rosie while pondering his murder. Annie awakens and approaches Vic, who is carrying her daughter. Because Andy has stolen something important from Vic, murdering his daughter is only appropriate. Andy tells him Lorraine wasn't his. Vic sobs, urging him to return his daughter. Vic realizes there is no going back and nothing he can do. He gives Rosie back to her father. After Andy, they race out of the railway tunnel before Vic changes his mind. They continue their trek, Andy wailing from his wounds. As Andy's symptoms worsen, they are forced to stop many miles away. He walks down to the soil and digs. Andy's nose picks up the decaying meat stench and understands he's running out of time. He ties the corpse's flesh on a stick. He confronts Thummy and makes her vow to always look for Rosie. The small girl agrees. Andy bids her farewell, recognizing time is short. With Thummy and Rosie on his back, he pursues the smell of decomposing flesh. His eyes and lips are pouring yellowish gunk. He wanders towards the aircraft while Thummy sets the route. As they approach the smoke's source, Thummy's mother and her tribe become increasingly suspicious. They're about to depart when a piercing whistle erupts from the smoke. Her daughter emerges through the smoke on the back of an ill beast. The tribe rushes to the suffering children's aid. Thummy reconnects with her mother and longs to return home. She promised her sick pal she would watch his daughter. The mother recognizes Rosie and embraces her. Thummy intervenes as the elder tribesman prepares to spear Andy's heart. He applies a bottle of Andy's ex-wife's perfume to his face. She was giving him one last bittersweet memory. To the tribesmen, she bows, grasping her friend's hand. The spear pierces Andy's heart as he falls to the ground. Sumi bids her friend farewell before joining Rosie's tribe. Arriving at the tribe's sanctuary deep in the mountains, they are welcomed by the residents. When Rosie's mother raises her, she finds a thank you message on her tummy. And that's it. Hope you enjoyed it. And please leave a comment, like, and subscribe to the channel for more interesting movies to recap. Take care. See you at the next video.